Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the JDS Learning Lab for answering your sublimation questions. My name's Dan Messerschmidt. I'm the National Sales Director here at JDS Industries. We want to welcome everyone to our third Learning Lab. We've done a couple of these already, and this is one of the things that JDS is doing to reach out to our customers while we can't go out and do trade shows. So you're going to be meeting a number of people from our sublimation department today, and we have over the past years traveled all over the country doing seminars and doing things face-to-face, and now we're being forced to do things just a little different, but that's okay. We're glad that everyone's here and is joining us today. One of the things that I want to do is really thank you for taking the time to be here today. I know things are busy and things are a little crazy, but we're going to work really hard to be sure this next hour is really valuable and informative for you. On the screen, you'll see our contact information for our sublimation team, 800 number that they've got, and their email address. And if any of you guys haven't had a chance to work with this team, we're going to be talking with Austin and Stacy and Jared and Lisa today. And one of the things that's really great about working with these guys is they're all trained as graphic artists. So when you call up with a question and you start working with our team here at JDS, you're not talking to somebody, even though I'm in sales, you're not talking to a salesperson when you're talking to them. You're really talking to somebody who's that graphic artist. So they're really looking at the problems that you're having from very much that same perspective you are. Why is my color not looking the way I want it to? And, how do I get this effect to come out well on this product? So they're really such a wealth of information and knowledge, and really enjoy working with them. And if you haven't had a chance to, you'll get to meet them today and get to really understand why they're such a valuable part of our team here at JDS. So we still have a few people that are, it looks like they're logging in and getting spun up with us here. So what I want to do real quick is just do a quick little poll question just to kind of kick things off here today, get us started. And so this poll question is about experience level. How do you describe your level of experience personalizing products using sublimation? So if you could all do us a favor and just kind of not log in, but just jump in and tell us whether you're that beginner person, even maybe somebody who's never done sublimation before, just kind of getting going or learning about it, or just been in it a couple months. That intermediate person's been in it a little while, starting to get yourself kind of trained up and doing pretty well. And then expert are those people that have really been in it for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Really very few curveballs coming at our attendees that are on that expert level. So appreciate everybody logging in and helping us with that. So you can see there about 65% of the folks we have on with us today are in that beginner category, and about a third of them in that intermediate. And we even have a few experts out there. So appreciate you giving us that feedback. It's going to help the subspecialists kind of tailor some of the answers to some of the questions that we're going to do, and help be sure that, again, we make this really valuable for you. So I want to go over to today's agenda real quick. We're going to be going over 5 different areas. First one is getting started in sublimation. I was looking at some of the questions that have already been submitted, like we said at the beginning, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A down there. Please pop in some questions there. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these 5 sections one at a time. And after each section, we're going to come together and answer a few questions that we get. So we really encourage you to push your questions in there. So we'll do a section on getting started in sublimation. Second section is sublimation tips. Third section is on heat presses. Fourth section is on printer maintenance. And then the last section, we're going to go over some additional resources that JDS has for you. So it looks like people are getting logged in, and our numbers are still climbing. But to keep us on time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into our first section. And for that, Austin is going to join us. He's one of our subspecialists, and he's going to be talking about a couple of different topics around getting started in sublimation. So Austin, take it away.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks for joining us, everyone. So to get started, what we're going to talk about is just what is sublimation in general, what's the process, how does it actually work? The scientific process behind that is the inks that are specially formulated for the sublimation process. They're a gel-based ink that's used within the inkjet printers. They're very similar to any other printer, but just the difference is the paper and the ink. But how that works is that ink is going to transfer off of that paper and onto your substrate once you put it in the heat press, and once you heat it. So from there, what you want to do is have the printer, the heat press, and then your items. And when you use items, you can't just use any regular items. You need to have a poly-based coating on all of the hard substrates, and also you need to use a poly fabric, whether that is a blend or 100% polyester. That's going to be the best case scenario to give you the best results. So with that being said, the heat press that we have, you have a couple different options. You can get a flat heat press to do all of those soft items, and then, so apparel and things like that. And then also you can get a cap press to do baseball caps, other items, and you can also do mug presses. So there's a bunch of options as far as those go. But the next thing that we'll be talking about is design software. And so with the design software, you can use CorelDRAW, which is probably the most common, especially among PC users. And you can also use Illustrator and Photoshop. Those are both from Adobe. They work as well with the Sawgrass printers that we carry. So they have specially worked with those companies in order to make sure the color correction settings are working properly. If you also don't have any of those, you can use the Sawgrass Creative Studio, which is their online-based proprietary software, and that is going to be really nice for people that are just beginning. They have some free artwork and some free fonts and things like that. So that's a nice way to get into it if you're just thinking about it, if you currently don't have the process. But if you do have the process, you already probably are aware of that. So with other substrates, like let's say heat transfer vinyl or screen printing, you might already have heat press. So that takes half of it out of there for you. So all you need is that printer with the special inks and special paper, and you're ready to go. So it can be a really easy startup cost, a low startup cost, easy way to get into it. So with that, the ink is a little bit different, like I mentioned, and the paper is also a little bit different. So it has a coating on it. This allows the ink to not embed down into the paper. And so it's going to be able to release off the paper much easier when you go to press it. So regular copy paper technically will transfer, it will work, but it's not going to work as well as these items that have this coating on it, because they will be able to transfer off just a little bit better. And with that, we can answer some questions.
Sounds good, Austin. Thanks for that information. It really helps everyone kind of get an idea of what they need to get going. I just looked through some of the questions, and I got one here for you that came in. There are a number of like little accessory things that you need to get going. What would be some of the accessories that somebody would need? We talk about got to have the printer and the heat press and the software, but what about a couple accessory things? You hear about butcher paper and Teflon paper. Can you talk about that just for a minute?
Yeah, the most common things, and Lisa's joining me here, so I'll say hey, hello to Lisa, but the most common things are going to be heat tape, obviously, for any hard substrates, and also with apparel, a must is going to be some sort of foam or foam kit. We carry a really nice foam kit that allows you to cut out custom shapes depending on the size paper you're using and the size of the artwork that you'll be using as well. And with that, you would also use a repositionable adhesive spray instead of the tape, because that tape sometimes doesn't like to stick to the apparel or the garments. Other than that, those are the few basic things. Also, we recommend either scratch paper or butcher paper, like you said, Dan, or some Teflon sheets. They're just a nonstick sheet, commonly used in baking as well too. So I'm sure a lot of people know about those or have used those with the other processes besides sublimation as well.
Yeah, there is a couple of pads you might need. One is a Nomex pad if you're doing fragile products that just absorb some of the pressure so that the ceramic tile or ornament doesn't break under the pressure. Also, there's also a heat conductive pad that might help things heat up more evenly, something thick like a sublimatable acrylic, which it has to be in the press so long, it can actually heat up unevenly, and then the surface can actually scorch. So that will just actually give it a little protection, but also help it heat up more evenly.
Very good. Lisa, do you have any more questions up there? I had another one if you don't right now.
Go ahead.
Here is one is people are asking, when you're looking at shirts, can you speak to both the content of what the shirt would need, you know, whether it's cotton, poly, blends, that kind of thing, along with the color of the shirt?
Yes, we will kind of be getting into this a little bit further down in the seminar, but we can talk to that now too. So as far as blends, I would not do anything lower than a 50-50. The higher the poly content in a shirt, the better the image is going to be. If you did do a 50-50, the first time you wash it, it's going to wash off the cotton part, but leave the polyester. Fibers will actually hold the color. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you had an image that might want to look more like a worn concert t-shirt, that might actually work great on a 50-50 if it has a little bit more faded look. Otherwise, if you want the brightest image, especially if it's a photo of somebody, you really want that on a 100% polyester because that's going to look the best.
And if you do use if you're wanting to use a darker shirt or a cotton shirt, you're not going to be able to sublimate onto the shirt directly, but we do have what is called our tag material, and that stands for thermoadhesive graphic. So that would be the way to get around not using polyester and also using dark fabrics.
Yep. We have a video on that if you want to check out our YouTube channel to find that video. It's pretty close to the top of the sublimation playlist.
Awesome. Thanks for those answers, guys. And again, for all our attendees, please keep popping those questions in. This is what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go section by section, then do some questions, but we're going to then feed all those questions back to you. So we're going to gather them all up and answer them all. So even if we don't get to your question during the webinar right now, all those are going to be sent out to all the registrants. So thanks for that, Lisa and Austin. We're going to jump over into our second poll question right now. And if you could help us with this one, what part of the sublimation process do you find most challenging? Do you find that designing the artwork on the computer most challenging, getting colors to match out is most challenging, or pressing the products and using the heat press? So if everyone would just jump on and give us a feedback on that, we would much appreciate it. And let's take a look at our results and see what we came up with on that one. So color matching, about almost 50%. So designing and pressing, kind of the other sort of almost quarter and quarter, but color matching, that is something that we hear a lot about. And so that helps our team upstairs really know what it is you're going to be kind of looking for and how they can answer a few more of those questions for us here today while we're together. So our next section, we're going to have Stacy join us, and she is going to be going over several different topics around sublimation tips. So we'll throw it upstairs to Stacy.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm going to be talking about what products can be sublimated onto. So it needs to have a poly coating on it for it to be able to work, or have polyester in it for it to be able to sublimate on a t-shirt. With that poly coating, you can't just go into a store and get it like a ceramic mug or something like that and think it's going to sublimate, because it has to have that poly coating. And with that poly coating is like our polar camels. And we're going to break and show you how we do our polar camels.
Hi, I'm Austin with JDS Industries. Today I'll show you the 3 ways you can sublimate our Polar Camel water bottles. For the first method, we'll be using a mug press. The time and temperature will only be 380 degrees for 1 minute with light to medium pressure. This will be significantly faster individually than using the convection oven. The second way is using shrink wrap and a convection oven. Use the heat gun to apply the shrink wrap onto the water bottle. Set your oven to 380 degrees and we will be heating this for 4.5 to 5 minutes. Halfway through the cook time, be sure to rotate the water bottle 180 degrees. This will make sure it doesn't burn your image on one side. The third way is using our silicone wrap in the convection oven. With the silicone wrap, set your oven to 405 degrees and we will be heating this for 6.5 minutes. Halfway through the cook time, be sure to rotate the water bottle 180 degrees so it doesn't burn your image on the side. And those are the 3 ways to sublimate our Polar Camel water bottles. If you want to align your artwork on the front or the side of the water bottle, make sure you first tighten your lid and then use that as a guide. For more information on these or any of our other products, contact us at 800-843-8853 or visit us on the web at jdsindustries.com.
Also, regarding t-shirts, which we kind of touched about a little bit, you can use blends of 50-50, 80-30, but just remember, anytime you go to wash that t-shirt, whatever has that cotton in it, it will lighten. And every time you do wash it, it'll lighten after that. So remember that. Next is how to get a good color. The first thing to remember in sublimation, always use RGB color format. Say you're getting an image from a client or something, request that from them also to get it in RGB color format. Another huge piece of the puzzle that a lot of people are not aware of for good color is color settings. So say in your Adobe programs, in Corel Draw, there's color settings that you go into and adjust them that gives you the best color coming from those programs. Say if you're struggling with these at all, make sure to give us a call here and we can get on your computer and help you out and get those all changed. Another thing to remember is printing from the printer. Not going directly to the printer. So the Ricos, you want to use your power driver. And so the Sawgrass printers, you want to use the Sawgrass print manager. If you print right to the printer, it'll print quicker. You'll have lines in it and it won't give you as good as color. So going to those print managers will give you a better color. So that's huge. Remember that. What paper works best? We have 3 different kinds of paper at JDS. They all work great on all our sublimation products. We have text print, True Pix, and just now arriving at all our JDS warehouses are JDS Sub. Definitely check out that new paper. It is very comparable to True Pix, and it's cheaper than text print. So definitely go out and check that out. The ink longevity. So once you place those inks into that printer, you want to use that within 6 months. Because if you go past that, the inks and the colors will adjust, then you'll be running into other kind of color issues. So remember to use it within 6 months. Also remember when your printer gets low on ink, wait till it gets about 20% low and then order the inks. You do not have to, right when you get a printer, order a whole set of inks and place them on your shelf because they all have an expiration date on them and you don't want them to get up to the expiration date before you're even placing them into your printer. So once it gets low, then order those inks and get them replaced out. That's all I have. Back to you, Dan.
All right, Stacy, thanks for all that great information. There was a lot packed in there. I've been kind of looking at some of the questions. Here's one. Can I use regular copy paper to print my image on and then use that to put it on my sublimatable product? Or am I going to see something weird if I do that?
Right. Great question. I have tried that. You can do it, but the image is not going to be very vibrant at all. It's going to look very dull.
Yeah, the ink will actually soak in more on copy paper, and so not enough is going to get released. You might see it okay on fabric, but if you're doing a hard product, you're really going to see it look really grainy because that ink is just not going to come off as much as with the actual sublimation paper, because there is a coating on the sublimation paper that prevents the ink from actually soaking all the way in.
Okay, great. Here's another question I just got. And somebody admittedly said a little bit of a beginner question, but we got a lot of new folks out there today. What is heat tape and how is that different from other kinds of tape? Is that a specific product that I need to use?
Yes, it is in sublimation. So the heat tape can withhold up to those over 400 degrees temperature. So that way, when you're placing it into your oven or even heat press, it's not going to melt or ruin your product. So yeah, it can withstand that heat, which you need for sublimation.
Yeah, some of those other tapes will leave like the sticky residue behind. That doesn't happen with the heat tape.
Oh, less cleanup and less mess.
Yes, exactly.
Let's do one more quick question here. I'll be honest, I haven't seen this question before, so I'm going to throw you guys a curveball. Somebody's saying they've done some of the Polar Camel water bottles, and when they're done sublimating it, they get a rough texture to it, and they're wondering, are they cooking it too long? Is there too much pressure? What's causing it to not feel as smooth when they're done with it?
Yeah.
That's usually from a little bit too much heat. It's actually scorching the surface a little bit. You can clean that off. The product that we have, the LA Totally Awesome Cleaner that we use a lot for laser engraving, that actually works really well to clean that off of the drinkware. It doesn't work so great on like metal that you put in the sheet stock metal, but it works really good on the drinkware. It must be a different coating on that. But yeah, just reduce your heat just a little bit and maybe even lessen your time. Every oven is going to be a little different, or mug press is different. So there is going to have to be some experimentation to get those settings dialed in just right.
And when they're doing that, when they're getting that rough feel, if they use the LA Awesome afterwards, is the product still sellable to the customer? Is that affecting the image, or is it just more of a feel kind of a thing?
It's just a feel thing. It doesn't affect the image. Just wait till it's cool to use the spray, and it will be just fine.
All right, great, awesome. Well, thank you guys. And I think we'll go ahead and we're going to move on, and we're going to jump into our next section here, keep things rolling. We're going to have Jared join us, and he is going to be talking about a number of different things in and around the actual heat press itself. So where's my Jared? There is my Jared. Hey, buddy. So
hey,
can you tell everybody about heat presses and what they need to do and what they need to look for?
Yeah, so starting off with heat presses, I'm going to kind of talk about the different types there are and some of the brands that we offer. So a few of the different types that you might have already known about are clamshell and swing away. Now, with clamshells, we normally recommend for only products that you would normally do for t-shirts, heat transfer vinyl, anything very thin, kind of smaller than 1/4 of an inch. If you were to try and do something that is 1/4 of an inch in a clamshell, you might notice some inaccurate results with the pressure, as it does put more pressure towards the back than the front, especially if you have a thicker product in there. With a swing away press, you're going to notice that that will have more of a gap that you can actually put thicker products in there, as well as even when you adjust some of those settings, you can still do t-shirts in those as well. So we normally recommend, for if you're doing all of our products or looking at doing all of them, look at a swing away press. With that, you kind of want to know what kind of products that you're going to be doing. So before you actually look into a press, just kind of have something in mind, like you're going to want to do t-shirts or anything like that. Also with your space, wherever you work at, the clamshell is a little bit more easier to do or use in a smaller workspace or work environment. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, where the swing away, it'll swing off to the left or right. So you need some kind of area to keep that, that area clean or nothing in the way. With the brands that we offer George Knight, Hicks, and Insta. These 3 brands are manufacturers in the United States. So they run by kind of a specific standard that they have to run by in order to kind of sell their products. Whereas compared to a press that you might get from Amazon for $200, you know, they might have a certain standard, but it's not going to be as strict as the United States ones. And, you know, another thing about the United States brands, usually they have a warranty on them that would allow you to call them for support, or even call us. We would be able to assist with anything like that. But if there's something kind of going wrong with that press, where if it's like anything going out in it, like a heat platen, you know, we could reach out to them for you or give you their contact information, and they would be able to assist a little further in that area. Now, some of the issues that you might tend to see while using a product in a heat press, you know, you want to make sure you're getting your best results, where you want to know what's the time and temperature that you're going to be doing for certain products. Whereas a fabric, you're going to probably be using a lower time, lower temperature, and less pressure. Whereas compared to a ceramic, you know, you're still probably going to use less pressure because you don't want to break it, but you're going to use a lot hotter temperature and a little bit longer time. A really good example for this to kind of look at is using kind of anything with a black output. So if you're trying to print a black and you notice it coming out kind of green, or it's not fully taking that ink, you could be doing not enough pressure, or you could be not getting enough time or temperature. So there's a few different variables there. Typically, we try and point at one at a time and not change all of them at once. Um, Now, if you're starting to see that black output coming out brown, or it's starting to kind of scorch on your product, like changing the white shirt to yellow, that could be a result of too much time and too much temperature, as well as if you're seeing the product getting kind of a mottled finish, or like on those water bottles, you're starting to see that transfer stick to it. That could be a result of too much time, too much temperature, and especially too much pressure. On metal is a very good indicator that if you have too much pressure, you might end up seeing kind of a mottled finish on it. It won't be as glossy as it was when you put it in the press. So if you're starting to see it with kind of a rough outlook of it, you might want to check your settings as well as how you're layering it too. Which we have a video that we're going to show you right here.
Hi there, this is Stacy with JDS Industries. Today I'll be showing you how to sublimate our aluminum sheet stock. We offer a few different brands of aluminum that each come in multiple finishes and colors. These are useful for trophy plates, indoor signage, and much more. The sheet stock is available in 12 by 24 inch sheets, which we can custom cut the appropriate size if needed. Today I'll be using the gloss white Dynasub. So first we're going to take off the protective coating, and a quick easy way of doing that is just take a piece of tape and the outer edge and take off that protective coating. Next we're going to just put it over our artwork, and we'll just need just a couple pieces of tape to do that. All right, let's go over to the heat press. I'll show you how to layer it. We're going to layer our heat press with first the Teflon sheet or a scratch piece of paper, then 2 or 3 layers of soft paper towel. This helps distribute the pressure evenly. Then we're going to do our transfer sheet on the bottom facing up and our substrate facing down. Next, we'll do a Teflon sheet or a scratch paper on top. We will be doing these for 390 degrees for 45 seconds on light pressure. And here's our finished product. It turned out great. One thing to note about the aluminum is that it is a soft coating, so if you end up with a mottled or scratchy finish, you may need to decrease your time, temp, or pressure. For more information on these or any of our other products, contact us at 800-843-8853 or visit us on our web at jdsindustries.com. Thank you.
All right, great video and great information, Jared. Thanks for all that. We are getting more and more questions coming in, and appreciate everybody throwing us questions. Here's one that I just saw. Somebody said when they're doing their product, they're getting a ghost image, kind of a second image. What causes that, and how can we not have that happen?
So depending on what product it is, if it's a fabric, there are a few things that you can do, but the number one thing we really recommend is to watch out when you're pulling up on your press, especially if it's a manual one. You want to pull up very slowly on that. Doing that will reduce the potential of it causing kind of a vacuum within there and sucking up your Teflon sheet or scratch paper and that transfer. So basically that transfer image is pulling up and then dropping back down on that product. So that's what's kind of causing that to happen. If it's a automatic press where you have to hook it up to an air compressor, that's a whole different story. There's not really too much you can control with that. But really with the manual one, that one is kind of the major issue there to resolve it.
Yeah, we see a lot of the ghosting happen with mostly with soft products like apparel or something like the neoprene beverage holders. It's really common for that to happen. I do recommend, and we've kind of touched on it before, is when you're doing a fabric product, not to use the heat tape, but instead use repositionable adhesive spray, and you spray it on the transfer, not the product. And that way it'll stick to the whole product, not just the edges. And that way, when you lift the press, it's not going to, lift the center where it's not attached.
So the ghosting comes from when the piece of paper with the image on it somehow separates or moves on top of the product.
Yeah, if you lift the press too much, it's going to create a vacuum effect, which will lift that transfer.
Sure, got it. Here's another quick question we had come in. Someone's doing sort of like a coffee mug, something like that, and they're finding that right at the very top edge or bottom edge, their image kind of fades. They're not getting quite as good of image strength right up at top or bottom. What causes that, and how can we avoid that?
Usually that is, you could turn up your pressure just a little bit. I mean, you don't want too much pressure that's going to break the mug. But usually, yeah, it is an uneven pressure that can cause that. It could also be a defect in the mug. If you lay the mug on its side and put a straight edge on top of the mug, you could probably tell if it is actually even all the way from the top to the bottom. That's a good indication too, if you could have issues.
Yeah, I could see that. Like you say, if the mug's kind of ended up having a little bit of a cone to it or a little bit of a taper to it, then you wouldn't get as good a contact.
Right. I mean, ceramic is not an easy product to make, so I could see where it could get off a little bit.
All right, sounds good. One of the other questions I know, do you have a question up there, Lisa, that you wanted to address, or?
Yeah, there was a good one here. One was, what kind of convection oven do we recommend? As far as like if you can't afford a really good mug press, you can also do drinkware in a small tabletop convection oven. The one that we use, it's an Oster brand. It's got the French door. If you look at like our video that we played, you can kind of see how it is. If you want to know the model number, you can email us and we'll let you know. We don't carry them. However, we can refer you to, we actually bought ours at Bed Bath & Beyond. You just want to make sure that it is a convection oven and not just like a regular toaster oven. The toaster ovens, the heat will fluctuate way too much. It's not going to stay consistent. It is important to have that airflow going through there. So that's what's really important.
And I saw a related question to that. They noticed that in the video, the Polar Camel water bottle was laid on its side, but then we also see you have to rotate it. So even if you lay it on its side partway through, you should kind of just roll it a little bit or move it a little.
Yeah, mainly because if you leave it on that side, that metal direct contact with the bottom floor of your oven, it's adding more heat to that. So it's actually not 400 degrees, whatever you have it in your oven. It's going to be like 420 degrees or something like that. So it's going to burn that side.
All right.
With the water bottle, since we do lay them down, you could put the rack back in the oven and lay it on there too. We just kind of have it laying out. Most of the Polar Camels are short enough where you can actually stand it up. It's the water bottles that are actually just a little bit too tall.
Oh, I got it. So it's just a matter of the height of the bottle just didn't fit in there. But if you're doing mugs or other items that are a little shorter, you can just put them in there on the little tray or rack or whatever.
Yep, or even just right in between the heating elements without the rack, because the bottom isn't going to be a problem.
All right. And I know from experience, be careful. That stuff is hot coming out of there.
That's right. We've all been burned at least once.
Absolutely. So that's a little tip for our newbies. I'm a newbie in sublimation, and I've done this before. Going, So, all right, Jared. Thanks for all the great information on the heat presses and everything. We're going to jump into our next topic, and that is going to be printer maintenance. And so Lisa is going to walk us through some ways to get a little more life out of and how to really work well with your printer. So I'll throw it up to you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Dan. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about printer maintenance. And yes, JDS does carry just the Sawgrass printer, so I'm going to talk mainly to that. However, I know some of you do use the Epson printers, and I'll touch a little bit on that. So the nice thing with, well, let me start from the beginning. When sublimation first kind of took off about 10 years ago, was mainly because of the Ricoh printers. Sublimation's actually been around since about the mid 80s, but it just was never very good until Epson actually came online with their printers. The only problem with Epson is that you have to print every day in order for the printers to not clog up. And that's as true 10 years ago as it is today. They've never been able to put a mechanism in those printers that will help with that. So you have to print every day. Guaranteed, you go away for the weekend, you come back, you're going to have a clog. So, you know, and Epson does really good color. I give them that, but they need to work on their maintenance side of those printers. Now, the Sawgrass printers or the Ricoh printers, when those came online, that's really when things blew up, because these printers will do self-maintenance as long as you leave them turned on. And that's going to save you a lot more ink than if you were to shut it off and come back later, 2 weeks later, and turn it back on, because it's going to go through a really long maintenance cycle, which is going to use a lot of ink. So let it do its thing. Leave it turned on. Let it do its thing. And it will take care of itself for the most part. Now, you still want to print as often as you can. At a minimum, you want to print about, at a minimum, 2 to 3 times a week. And you don't even have to press those transfers. You can actually save them in a file folder away from dust and humidity and use them later on. A pre-printed transfer will actually last indefinitely. So that's a really good way to get some use out of your printer. The more, of course, the more you use your printer, the longer it's going to last. I mean, that's why we still have customers that use the original Ricoh printer from 10 years ago, because they are printing all day, every day, which is really surprising. We had a ink sale a couple weeks ago, and after I looked at all the sales and which inks they bought, I was really surprised at how many of the older Ricoh inks we sold. It was just amazing that those printers are still being used to this day. I'm just so happy about that, because they're very good printers, but as long as you're using them, you're going to get a lifetime out of it. I mean, in general, a printer, you know, they're just inkjet printers. If you buy one at Best Buy, just a regular office printer, it's probably going to last you maybe 2 years. But these printers, as long as you're using them, they can last, you know, 5 to 7 years. If you use just a minimal amount of use out of it, you might get 2 to 4 years out of one of the printers. So just kind of keep that in mind. Something else you want to keep in mind too is the humidity level in the area where your printer is. So during the summer, when it's a lot more humid, you will have issues with the paper coming out a little more wet, the ink not drying as well. If that happens, especially if you're using a full coverage transfer, if it comes out feeling a little damp, you don't want to press it right away, because that's going to leave what I call tiger stripes on your product. And that happens because that ink, because it's still so wet, when it's heated, it's actually going to create steam. And then that steam travels and it's going to take some of the ink with it. So you don't want that. That's just going to wreck your product. So if your transfer is a little damp, just stick it under the heat of the press and let the heat radiate down. You know, don't bring your platen down, just set it under the heat for about a minute or so, and that'll help dry out your transfer, and then you can go back and press it. Something else to keep in mind too is during the winter months, up here in the northern climates, we have more of an issue with static electricity. And what caused that is because the air is so dry. When the print head is going across the paper, it's actually, there's static electricity that's created because the paper is so dry. It will actually pull the ink along with it, and you'll get what looks like a streak across your paper off to one side of your image. Especially, I see it a lot in text, or if you're doing like a full black, you'll see it. It's like a faded streak off to just one side of your image. So that's caused from the static electricity that's built up in the paper. To solve that, you want to just open a new pack of paper and just put in what you need for that job. Don't put in the whole pack into the printer, because that printer, the more it sits there, the drier it's going to get. And then also to put in a new pack of paper and then maybe do one head cleaning, and then you should be back in business. Any questions on that so far?
Hey, Lisa, lots of great information there again. Yeah, a couple quick questions. One was somebody asked, can the new Sawgrass printers be set up wirelessly? And if they can, is there any reduction in the quality of what you would see coming off that printer?
It can. The new printers, the SG500 and SG1000, can be set up wirelessly. However, you want to make sure you have a really good Wi-Fi network. If you're working at home and you have your kids are at home, or your husband's at home playing video games, or your kids are watching YouTube, that's going to drag down your network. So if you have the more devices that are connected to that Wi-Fi network, it's going to cause your slowness in the amount of time it takes to send a job to the printer. It doesn't reduce the quality. It's just the amount of time it takes to send the job to the printer is what it does.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably a lot of information.
Connect it directly with a USB cable.
All right. One other question here. Can I switch? If I have one printer and I want to use it for like just doing regular printing off stuff that I need printed off for, work or whatever, but then I want to use it for sublimation, can I go kind of back and forth?
It is not recommended. Say, for instance, you bought an Epson printer. We'll go on that route because Epsons make office printers, but they can be modified for sublimation. It is not recommended to switch back and forth because the ink is very different than regular office ink. And it can actually, switching it back and forth, one, it's expensive because you have to flush it out every time. Then also it can actually damage your print head. So keep them dedicated to whatever process you're doing.
Got it. All right, very good. Well, Lisa, lots of great information. Thanks for all that. We're gonna jump into our third and final poll question real quick. And that question is, how did you first learn about sublimation? It's kind of a unique and interesting process. And so we like to find out kind of how people found out about sublimation. Was it through social media? Or did they see something at a trade show or a seminar? Did a supplier get you some information on that? A friend or somebody else? Or maybe even something out of a magazine where you learned about it? So I will also take a minute to say, Nate, I did see you ask a question. You told me last week you were going to be on and ask a question. So I'll say hello to Nate. So, all right, let's take a look at our results and see where everyone heard about this wonderful thing called sublimation. Oh, pretty good spread. Trade shows and seminars, #1. But then after that, learning about it from a friend or business associate, or maybe even on social media. So, well, I feel bad for the people that sell magazine advertising because they did not fare very well in teaching people about sublimation, but I appreciate that. We're going to go now, we're going to head right back in with Lisa, and she's going to talk to us about some additional resources that JDS has for you as you guys are into sublimation and getting spun up. So take it away, Lisa.
Okay. From here, we're going to jump over to our JDS website. Okay, so once you log into the website, we're going to do a search for a part number. I'm going to show you some of the things you can find on here. So let's just search for a SM11W. Okay, then you see that down below the pricing table, there's 6 little icons there. So the first one is going to show you the inventory that we have by location. So you can, if you're looking to get something and you want to get it out of the Visalia warehouse, you can see we're -13, but we have 1,500 or so in Sioux Falls. So that's where possibly your order might come from. So just kind of keep that in mind, check the inventory, especially if it's a new product, you want to check your inventory for when things come into stock. If you go over to the details icon, that'll show you just some general information about the product itself, whether it's two-sided or what it's made of, the dimensions, all that good information. The next one will you can send an email of the image to your client if they want to see a product. The next thing, which is really important, is the instructions. This is going to show you step by step all the supplies you need, how to layer the press or whatever else you need to get that job done. I always recommend check this before taking on a new product, just so you know you have everything you need and you have all the instructions on how to get it done right. Okay, the next thing that's just been added is the how-to video. If there is a video for the product, we're going to have the link right there that'll send you over to our YouTube channel, so you don't have to search for it on your own. It's just going to be there. We're constantly adding more products with videos, so look for that in the future. We just started that, so we'll get more and more with that link. And then the last thing is our product template. These are, once you hit it, it'll automatically download. They are EPS files, which will work in most general design softwares like CorelDRAW, Adobe Illustrator, and even Photoshop. If you need something in a different format, just send us an email or call us and we can convert one and send it off to you. I'm looking at possibly adding more file formats to our catalog of templates, so look for that also within the near future. The next thing I want to look at is up at the top next to the quick order pad, we have the Sublimation support link. If you click on that, and some people maybe not even know this existed, but there's a lot of good information in here. One is our lovely photos, and then also is our direct phone number to our group. There's the link to the Sawgrass website, and then also the link to our Facebook group. This is a private group just for JDS customers. If you want to join it, just answer the few questions and then we will approve you or not. And then if you need help with anything, the group is very active and they will help you out. Or we're on it too. We can actually answer some questions if, like, even on the weekend, we jump on there occasionally. Something else you can find if you go down to the education section, this will show you when we were doing classes at trade shows or seminars, we had a list of classes there, but unfortunately right now we're not. But as soon as we start back up, we will have the schedule on there. There's also the link to our YouTube channel. We'll tell you all the different videos you can find. If you go to the vendor info, you'll find phone numbers and websites for our printer and heat press vendors, George Knight, Hicks, and Insta, and as well as Sawgrass. The ink recycle, or I'm sorry, the resources page has a lot of really good stuff in it as well. You can find links to our sublimation templates. The pricing guide is really helpful when you're pricing for sublimation, because sublimation products are not just taking the product times 4. There's a lot of variables in there, such as the cost of your ink, the cost of your paper, your time, even the perceived value, depending on whether or not your customer is a nonprofit versus a corporation. You can charge a little bit more to those corporate clients. So this spreadsheet will actually help you set up your pricing for those products. The next thing down is color palettes. This is really important, especially if you have those customers where it's important that you match their color of their logo specifically. So this link is going to send you to our Exavault site, and in there is hundreds of color palettes, and each one is a range of colors. So say you're looking for a dark red. So you'll download the one that says brick red to black. And what will give you all the range of colors in between brick red to black, and it will give you the RGB value underneath each swatch. So you print that, you bring it into your software, you print it out, you sublimate it. Usually we just use it on some plain sheet stock metal, and that way it'll give you a base of what that's actually going to look like when you actually do sublimate it onto your product. The tutorials is also a really good place you can find information on how to do different processes in CorelDRAW, Photoshop, and Illustrator. There's also, I think there's a troubleshooting tutorial in there for sublimation in general. There's also a beginner sublimation tutorial in there. There's a lot of good tutorials in there. So if you get stuck on anything, check that. They're just PDFs. You can save them, whatever you want to do. And then after that, there's a bunch of other kind of random things that you might be looking for, how to cut, what methods you can use to cut the Unisub products. The vapor apparel sizing chart will tell you So if you have a upper left chest logo, it will go this far down and this far over, that kind of thing. So this is a really good resource as well. The last thing I want to look at is the ink recycling. So you can recycle ink kind of through JDS. If you click that link, then it will send you to a place where you can generate a free UPS label as long as you have 25 or more inkjet cartridges that you need to recycle. And it doesn't have to be sublimation, it can be regular inkjet. As long as you have 25 or more, you can get a free UPS label, and that'll send it into a different company and they will recycle the ink. You don't get anything for it, like points or anything through JDS. You just get the soft, fuzzy feeling that you're not sending those cartridges into the landfill. So just keep your empty cartridges in a box. Once you get 25 or more, just send them in and they'll recycle them for you. I think that's all I have for this section.
Awesome. Well, I've been kind of keeping an eye on the questions that have been rolling in, so I did get a couple of them that maybe we can address. You mentioned when we got to the website, you said log in. How do I get a login?
So you will, when you get to the website, there is a button that says become a customer. So you want to fill that out, and you do need a retail sales tax ID, and then that will generate, and then customer service will actually look over that form that you filled out, and then it will, they will create the account for you. They'll email you with your login, what they'll do. See that right below where it says become a customer right there, then you'll fill out the catalog request. There's a lot of information in there they want. You'll fill all that out along with your company information, all that good stuff.
So basically, it's just the process of becoming and opening a little bit of an account with us, not an open account, but becoming a customer, so to speak.
Right.
All right. Another good question was in the little box where underneath we had all the little icons, but above it had the pricing. There's a pricing that said LTC. What's that?
That stands for less than case. So I know some companies do not break cases open. You have to buy the full case. You can't buy just one of a product, but here at JDS, we allow that. You can buy one product or the entire case or just 10, whatever quantity you want. So the LTC stands for less than case.
Yeah, and I know, and I want to bring that up. We get that question a lot when we're working trade shows, and people say, "What's your minimum? What's your minimum?" Well, JDS, we don't have a minimum. We'll sell you one of anything. So
right, exactly.
Very good. So the other thing we wanted to do is also just open it up to some general questions, and lots of good information in that section you just did, Lisa. But then just generally, some of the questions that I've kind of gathered here, and you guys might have gathered some upstairs, is I love this question: which side of the paper do you print on? and I'm telling you, we get that question a lot at trade shows.
Yeah, so sometimes you might run into issues like that. You might end up, that's not the number one thing we look at, but it does happen. But normally with transfer papers, TextPrint R, that has a watermark on the back of it, so that one's easy to tell. But with, let's say, TruePix paper, that one doesn't. One easy way is taking two pieces of paper and flipping one of them over to see which side is different. You want to make sure you're printing on that bright white side. The other side will look kind of cream, and that's the side that you don't want to print on. So you want to put that bright white side face down in your printer.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Another question I saw here: if I sublimate a t-shirt, how long does that sublimation last on that shirt?
That's a really good question. So if it is 100% polyester, that image is going to outlast the life of that shirt. Your shirt is going to wear out before that image would ever do anything. So you can wash that 500 times and it's going to look exactly the same as when you first pressed it. That's the beauty of sublimation, is that it doesn't fade. Unless it's something, not a shirt, but like something like metal that is put outdoors for extended period of time, it will generally fade within about 6 months. Now there is sheet stock aluminum that has improved and is more UV stable and actually has guarantees. If you want more information about that, you can contact us. But that's really nice how things have started to change as far as that UV damage to sublimation.
Another kind of related question, it says, when you sublimate a shirt, can you feel the ink on the shirt?
So no, you can't. That's a very quick and easy answer. You know, it's nothing like vinyl. When you sublimate to it on a t-shirt, it bonds with those fibers. So it's initially, you know, becoming part of the shirt. So no, you cannot feel it, or, you know, there's nothing that you can tell that it happened. It's almost like magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why people like sublimation, is because like vinyl, it's so heavy that you sweat underneath it. But sublimation, it's dyeing those fibers, so you can't feel it and you're not going to sweat under it.
You're right. Over the years, we've seen the word sublimation and the word dye sublimation, but those are really the same process, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Here's another good question I saw. You had mentioned that, or I can't remember who it was that mentioned that if somebody wanted you to, you could connect to their computer through the internet and help them set up their system. Tell them just a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so all you do is once you get your printer, give us a call at that phone number right there on your screen. And yes, we can log on to your computer remotely. And we can't see anything beyond your computer, so don't worry about that. But yeah, we can remotely log onto your computer, get everything installed for you, make sure that your design software is configured correctly, and show you how to print, how it's going to work. And then from then on, if you do have trouble, you can also call us back and we can log on again, however many times we need to do it to get you up and going.
And at least, I don't know if you remember it, but years ago, I was on the road and I had a customer call and say, you know, gee, Stan, nothing that I'm making with my new sublimation system looks anything like the samples. And that's really upsetting to me. I wanted to be able to make really nice things like your samples. And I remember I called in and had you call them. You happened to be next in line for that call. And they had two power drivers on that were conflicting. And so you got one turned off, the right one turned on, that kind of stuff. And he called me 2 days later and says, everything looks great. So that is a big thing. I know sometimes people kind of get into sublimation, they get a little frustrated with it. And I really encourage people, please reach out to the sublimation team. Give them your problems, give them your challenges, what is happening. Sometimes it's something, you might be doing everything right and there's a setting down in there somewhere. So I really encourage people, if you're not getting great results and really not happy with what you're getting, please contact our sublimation team. They're so good to work with and so knowledgeable. So I appreciate you guys so much and everything you do for our customers. So
yeah, and believe me, there are no dumb questions. We've heard it all. So don't even hesitate to think, oh, this is just a dumb issue. I know I'm going to feel stupid after I ask it, but don't even worry about it because we've seen it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we have any of them behind you, but we, like a lot of shops, have a wall of shame of things we've done incorrectly. And you know, you go to do an acrylic and you end up printing it backwards. So yeah, those things happen. So
yep, it happens. We do it too.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you guys so much. This really concludes our presentation for the day. Really appreciate everyone joining us, and wanted to remind everybody that again, we had hundreds of questions that came in, and we're going to take all those and we're going to answer them all. We're going to send those all out to everybody once we get all the answers done. And everyone that registered for this is going to be getting the actual presentation. So all the videos and everything in you, you'll be able to share it with the other folks in your shop or with other employees or whatever. So you're going to get all of this stuff, and we'll be sending you lots of information. So it isn't just about today. It's really about, you know, connecting and helping you continue to drive your business in the sublimation area. So one of the other things I want to do before we go is I want to mention that we do have show specials, webinar specials, because we're not doing trade shows. So this is a webinar special. You can see that starts today and that runs through the 18th, which is next Friday. So what's that, 8-10 days here. You can see the code in the corner. Just be sure and mention that code when you send your order in. If you are sending your order in online, there's a comment box. Please put that code in there and just say, hey, this is a webinar special order. If you're calling in, just mention that you were part of the webinar and have that code. And I wanted to show you real quick on that. The first 3 lines of the special there on the left, any item, any quantity, end column price. That is a huge opportunity. One of the things that people like to buy, just like Lisa and I talked about, was buy things in less than case quantity. Some of the polar camels might come 12 or 24 in a case. Say, well, geez, I don't want 24 of them. I need 2 or 3. This is your opportunity to buy anything in the JDS catalog at the less than case quantity, but at end column price. So it doesn't matter if it's a sublimation item or a laserable item or sheet stock or any of these things that you're like, geez, I just like one or two of these or just one or two of these. I don't want to have to buy the case. Now's the time to stock up on all that stuff because we have that special going through next Friday. The next three lines talk about the discounts, the 3%, 4%, 5% discount on $1,000, $2,000, and $5,000 orders. And these kind of come into play when people are saying, okay, I do want to get a printer. I do need to get a heat press. I do want to get a mug press. I want to buy a lot of stuff at once, and I want to really kind of drive that price down. So I really encourage people to do that and take advantage of that. We also have 5% off on our tools. So that's another special that we have. The last thing I'll mention on that is that special runs through next Friday, so you can use it multiple times. So let's say maybe you place an order, tomorrow's going to be Wednesday, you place an order Wednesday, then you get the next week Tuesday. You can use that code again and again. So sometimes people will do it multiple times over the window of opportunity, and sometimes they might save up and just say, I want to do the one big order. I want to see if I can get to the $1,000 and get that 3% discount on everything. So whatever way you want to do it works for us. But again, I want to thank everyone for your time. We hope that you've enjoyed this last hour. It goes so fast when we do this, but I want to wish everyone a very great week and happy holidays, and let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Thanks for joining us.